Films in Focus with David Sterritt is underwritten by The Movie House, your destination for first-run Hollywood and independent movies, and a digital portal to the Met Opera, National Theatre Live, and special events worldwide in Millerton, New York, and on the web, themoviehouse.net.
David Sterritt is the editor-in-chief of the Quarterly Review of Film and Video, contributing writer at Cineast, film professor at the Maryland Institute College of Art, and Robin Hood Radio's very own critic. He joins us weekly. The films House of Gucci, Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn, and Passing. I'll leave you on the second title with a massive question mark and await your review. Hi, David. How are you?
Doing okay, Jill. How are you doing this Thanksgiving week?
Cannot complain. You know that's the stock answer. So that will continue to be the.
I'm always glad to hear it because anyway, I hope there's nothing to complain of.
Well, that's the trick. All right.
Unfortunately, some of the characters in some of these movies today have plenty to complain of. But hey, that's why they get to be in the movies, and we get to watch their sometimes sad stories. These three films I want to talk about this week, Jill, are very different from each other. And let us begin with House of Gucci, which is a new movie from Ridley Scott, who is, of course, a very major filmmaker who probably for much of his career was best known for his sort of science fiction stuff like Alien. And more recently that, I think, not very good TV series, Raised by Wolves. But he does other kinds of things, too, and House of Gucci is very much in a different vein. And it is a kind of a fact-based movie. And it is, in fact, about all kinds of unhappy stuff that happened in the House of Gucci, which, of course, is the fabulous fashion house. It's interesting. There are some good movies and TV things and whatnot about the world of fashion. It turns out to be a lot of melodrama in the world of fashion. I mean, real-life melodrama. I just recently caught up with the TV miniseries Halston, where we have Ewan McGregor going through all kinds of unhappy experiences and some very happy experiences along the way, too. But actually, not much he goes through compares with the worst stuff that happens in House of Gucci, which, again, is all based on fact. And the main character that it focuses on primarily is Patrizia Reggiani, who marries into the Gucci family. And one thing I want to get to right away here is the cast, because Patrizia Reggiani is played by Lady Gaga. And Maurizio Gucci, whom she marries, is played by Adam Driver. And his father, an older scion, or not scion, I guess, a patriarch, one of the patriarchs of the Gucci family and operation, is played by Jeremy Irons. And then there's also an uncle, played by Al Pacino. So really, and there's sort of a ne'er-do-well brother who never quite gets anywhere, who is played by Jared Leto. And we have Salma Hayek in a very, very small but important role within the movie. So a really good cast. And one of the reasons to see House of Gucci is to watch, some interesting acting by these terrific people. So anyway, what happens is that Patrizia Reggiani and Maurizio Gucci fall in love with each other, and they get married, and everything is supposed to be wonderful. And she doesn't really know much about the fashion world, and he doesn't really know if he really fully wants to go into the family business. But yes, they get together, and he ends up, staying with the family business and doing very well. And there's all kinds of machinations about whether the business is going to do this or go in that direction or make this change or not make this change. And there's some business stuff in it, but mainly we have this romance between our two main characters, played again by Lady Gaga and Adam Driver. And then as time goes by, and this is, I think, for me at least, the main thrust of the movie, the marriage starts to get sour. And the marriage gets sourer and sourer as time goes by. And I won't give away the ending, although it's based on real life, and I'm sure a lot of people know about it. But let's just say that tragedy ensues. And there's some very, very nasty stuff that happens in the latter part of this movie, because that's the way it was in real life. And okay, that's what it is. It's the ultimately sad story of the House of Gucci, although the House of Gucci itself is still very much around, and it's not a sad business story, more of a sad personal story. So Ridley Scott has done a very nice job of directing this. The movie is really, as it should be for a movie about and called House of Gucci, it is very stylish. It looks terrific. It looks very streamlined and elegant and all kinds of nice stuff to look at along the way. Really, really nice stuff in it. Okay, very good-looking movie and well-directed. That said, it is over 2.5 hours long. Now, there is no reason why this movie has to be that long. Okay, it doesn't exactly get boring, but the story could have been told a lot more tightly and probably would have been more dramatic and more interesting if it were. But hey, it's a nice sort of sprawling family epic, Godfather style, I suppose. So, okay, give it its 2.5 hours plus, but it didn't really have to be that long. The main reason to look at this movie, I think, aside from the good elegance of it and stylishness of it, is the acting, which I'll just mention once again. Lady Gaga, and with a name like that, when she the first time I really paid much attention to her as an actor was in the recent movie a remake of A Star Is Born. And with a name like Lady Gaga, I just assumed that she was just going to be an idiotically bad actress, and she turned out to be good. Perfectly good actor, and she still is. She's very good. I don't think she's brilliant. It's not a performance for the ages or anything, but she's very good as Patricia Reggiani. Adam Driver, I think, has been way overexposed in recent years. He's just been in too many movies, but here he gives a good, solid, serious performance. Of course, he looks wonderful and handsome and all that, but he does some real acting as well, and I think it's the best work I've seen from him for a while. And Jeremy Irons and Al Pacino, it's almost always a pleasure to watch them do anything. So I would say the main reason to go to House of Gucci is because of the acting, which is really, really good. And again, it's a really good-looking movie. The story is dramatic, not exactly have you on the edge of your seat, but it's a good movie, not a great movie. So, and probably not a bad movie to take in over Thanksgiving weekend if you want to see something that's nice and long and will pass the time for you. Our second movie today, as I said earlier, is really, really, really different. Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn. This is directed by the very, very great Romanian filmmaker Radu Juda. And just recently, we were talking about another movie of his called Uppercase Print, which is even more unconventional in some ways than Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn. But he is just one of the greatest figures in the current new wave of Romanian film that's going on. And they're having a lot of real international successes, and this is one. It's wonderful that a Romanian movie, in this case two by one director, going into distribution in America within just a few months. But there we have it. Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn is a crazy title, and in a way it's a crazy movie, and I'll just say very briefly what it's about. The main character is a teacher at a pretty prestigious sort of upscale high school. And what happens is that she and her husband have had some really wild sex one night, and a video was made on it, and somebody uploaded the video onto the internet. So here you have this school teacher, and she's a nice, respectable lady, apparently a very good teacher at a very good high school, but now this sex video with her, and it's her and her husband. There's nothing really wrong with this, but it's up on the internet, and it's really embarrassing for everybody. And now she's going to have to go and answer for this to the school and try to prevent getting suspended or fired or something like that. And anyway, that's what the movie's about. So the whole first part of the movie is her sort of wandering around the city and preparing for this meeting and talking to people on the phone and wondering, she got this video down off the internet, but now somehow it's gotten back onto the internet again, that kind of thing. She goes into a pharmacy to get a Xanax to calm her down, but they won't give her one because she doesn't have a prescription, so she has to take some little weak thing instead. Stuff like that. Then we have eventually, in the later part of the movie, we have her meeting with the school board and various concerned parents and so forth. And there's a lot of shouting and yelling, and it sounds just like the kinds of school board meetings that we're hearing in America sometimes nowadays, where parents are all on opposite sides of some issue and they're yelling and screaming at each other. I've heard some audio of that stuff going on, and it really, really, even though in this case it's about porn more than about politics, it really reminded me of some of the stuff that we have going on in America, the way people can get so personally charged up about things at school board meetings of all places. So it's very interesting in that regard. And then the middle portion of the movie is a kind of a big digression from the plot part of the movie, where the director Radu Juda kind of gives us a little dictionary of different terms, and by walking us through these different terms with various film and video clips, giving us a little bit of a portrait of what life is like in contemporary Romania, but also, again, a lot of it is very reminiscent, for me at least, of what life is like in contemporary America too. So in this day and age when so many of us are interconnected with people in different parts of the globe, this movie really brings that home, because again, it's all about Romania, and it's all about a Romanian woman and a Romanian situation. But then again, it's also about cell phones and videos and the internet and angry school board meetings and things like that. So it's got a lot of stuff in it that is very international, if not universal, in its relevance. So Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn, it's a crazy movie, and I should say this very explicitly. It is very explicit. There is more than one really pretty lengthy sequence of hardcore pornography in this movie. So that may be a plus for some people, a minus for other people. Some people probably won't want to go anywhere near this movie, if only because of that. But anyway, it is in there, so look out. If you want to see Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn, you will see some loony and genuine porn within it. I just found it a rollicking, sort of over-the-top, crazy social document. Really, really interesting in a lot of ways that are serious, even though it's telling a story which in some ways is very whimsical. Radu Juda is one of the great filmmakers on the world scene today, and I'm just delighted that his movies are getting into distribution in the United States, and I recommend this one and anything by him that you can go to see. He's made some terrific movies in the past, and everything I've seen by him has been absolutely first rate. Now let's come back to a little bit closer to the planet Earth again and talk about our final movie, Jill, which is called Passing. And this is a very, very serious and very, very lovely and very, very restrained little drama directed by and written by Rebecca Hall. And this is very much a movie about women, and it is very much also a movie about race in America. It takes place in the 1920s, but its concerns are just absolutely up to the minute. And it's a very touching and moving film that really gets you thinking about all sorts of issues that have to do with race. Okay, so the title, Passing, refers to that practice of passing as one race when in fact you would conventionally be considered to be a member of another race. And historically in the United States, that's very often meant light-skinned black people passing for white. There's other kinds of passing, of course, but that's the kind that this movie deals with. And so we have two women who run into each other. They haven't seen each other for a very long time in New York back in the 1920s. And one of them, whose name is Irene, she has always she's a black woman, and she has fairly light skin, but she is always identified as a black woman, and that is what she is, and her husband is a black physician, and they have children, and she has just always lived a very happy and definitely sort of upper middle class life. They live in Harlem, but they have a lovely home, and they have they have wealthy friends and all of that, and they're very, very successful, kind of upper middle class people, very much black people. And what happens is that Irene runs into this old friend she hasn't seen for a very long time, whose name is Claire, and she has been passing as white for quite a long while. She's just found life easier that way, and her skin is very light, and she's gotten away with it. And she has a white husband. And we discover as soon as he enters the film that he is not only a white husband, but he is a really bigoted white husband, prejudiced, biased, a really awful person who says some really vicious things about black people very early, almost as soon as he comes into the movie. So not only is Claire a black woman passing as white, but she has a white husband who has absolutely no idea that she herself is of black heritage and who absolutely despises black people. And so these two women get together and they start to renew their acquaintance. And Irene is horrified when she realizes, okay, Claire is passing for white. That's her business. But how can she be married to this awful bigot of a husband? And anyway, the two women, now that they've found each other again, they spend time together, they get together, they visit each other, they meet each other's husbands and so forth, and the movie kind of unfolds from there. So it's a very, very interesting film about these two women who have had such different experiences, even though both of them are fairly light-skinned black women, and especially about the kind of family situations they found themselves in. I found the end of Passing to be a little bit disappointing. The end of Passing, the movie suddenly slips over into into melodrama. And I thought that was unnecessary, just the very, very end of it. But before that, the movie is so quiet, so restrained, and it just allows the emotions to build out of the situations of the characters, who are beautifully, beautifully acted. This is basically, not entirely, but basically a two-person drama with Tessa Thompson playing Irene and Ruth Negga playing Claire. And they are both just excellent. They both give these lovely performances. They never push anything. They never strain anything. They just let the emotions and the various moods of the story emerge very, very naturally. And the credit for that also goes very much to the writer-director, Rebecca Hall, who has just done a wonderful job of putting all this together. The movie starts with this very wonderful, almost avant-garde kind of beginning, where we just sort of have shapes and shadows and shades of black and white and gray sort of floating and merging across the screen, and that sets up the mood for the whole film, which is all about sort of shades, little bits of nuance between this shade and that shade, this mood and that mood, this action and that action. And it's just a beautifully restrained and subtle movie, and it's so much about issues that are in so much with us today, about race and various kinds of bigotry and prejudice and various kinds of denial and affirmation of race. And this movie just deals with those things, even though back in the 1920s, in ways that seem totally, utterly relevant. I think Passing is one of the best movies we've had this year, and I think everybody should go out of their way to see it. And so that is my pretty jumping around all over the place story this week, Jill.
With superior titles. Thank you very much, David Sterritt. Films in Focus, the superior titles: House of Gucci, Bad Luck Banging or Loony Porn, and Passing.